Hi, this is Mrs. Anderson, and I have a short lesson today for you on the process of revision. So we've done a lot of essay writing until this point, but one of the things that I wanted to focus on for this writing assignment is how to take your writing and revision it in order to see it through new eyes and make it better. This lesson is also entitled Toni Morrison Speaks the Truth. You go, girl. And you may have no idea who Toni Morrison is, but we will get to that in a moment. So I also wanted to remind you that this lesson will also be on my YouTube channel so that you can stop it, rewind it, and listen to it as many times as necessary in order to understand the material. So who the heck is this Toni Morrison that I spoke of earlier? So what I have here is compiled some facts about Toni Morrison and her educational and writing career. So I'm not going to read them all to you because I know at this point in your educational career you can certainly read. But I think what is certainly astounding is not just the number of books that she's published, but the number of awards that she's won for her books as well. And if this isn't enough to give her some credibility as a writer, somebody who knows something about her craft, I can also let you know that she was one of Oprah's first Book of the Month Club authors. So if Oprah sees her as a legit writer, then we know that she has to be legit. And so therefore, what she can teach us about revision is really important and can also be really helpful. And because I feel like Toni Morrison knows her stuff, I wanted to give you her thoughts on the process of revision. So I'm going to read this quote to you directly. In terms of revision, she says, "I love that part. That's the best part, revision. I do it even after the books are bound." So think about that. Here's a woman that has her books published internationally, and as they're coming out and people are buying them, she's still taking a red pen to them and finding new ways and better ways to say things. She continues, "Thinking about it before you write it is delicious. Writing it all out for the first time is painful because so much of the writing isn't very good. I didn't know in the beginning that I could go back and make it better, so I minded very much writing badly. But now I don't mind at all because there's that wonderful time in the future when I will make it better, when I can see better what I should have said and how to change it. I love that part." So I want you, like Toni Morrison, to embrace this new journey that we're going to go on, this idea of looking at a piece of writing and understanding that you will make it better, it's going to be changed, and that can be a rewarding part of watching your writing grow. Now notice the point of this lesson is called revision versus rewriting. And there's a reason why I do that. Because revision comes from the prefix re, which means again, as well as vision, which is a mode of seeing or conceiving. If I was asking you to rewrite something, I'm just asking you to write it again. But I'm asking you to first to look at your writing again from a new perspective in order to make it better. Remember what Toni Morrison says. It's that future promise of greatness that inspires her to go back and revise. So a lot of you may be wondering, how do I revise something and make it better? It's not just enough to take your in-class essays and to type them up. Yes, typing will make it easier for me to read, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's better quality work. So what I'm going to go through now are some steps that you can take in order to revise your writing. So step one for the revision process is to look at the feedback. So you can get various forms of feedback in an essay, but usually in this class, there's the editor or my comments, and there's the rubric. Now, for this particular essay that you're revising, you wrote it in class, it was graded for a final, and there's not a whole lot of teacher comments. So you're going to have to rely pretty much on the rubric for this one. If I did make any comments, it was in the form of circles or arrows, and I left that somewhat vague in order to make sure that you would go and look at the rubric and look at more than just your score, because the revision process is going to require you to look at each individual category and think about, okay, what did I do well on, and what do I need to look at and see with a new set of eyes? So now that you've had a chance to look at the feedback, what you really need to start to do is ask yourself some questions. Question number one is, can you read my writing? If I have written on an essay, the big issue sometimes is that I'm writing in cursive, and it's not the neatest cursive, where people just aren't really equipped at reading cursive anymore. So if you can't read something, please make sure that you come by during collaboration or before or at the end of class during some downtime to ask about, hey, what the heck does this even say? Now, once you know what the comment says, what you may need to ask help with is what the comment means. So sometimes I'm using shorthand that you may not be familiar with. You may not know that WC stands for word choice, or RO stands for run on, or that explain means that you are missing information in your reasoning to help me understand your evidence and not see it as assumptive. But sometimes people know that that's what the comment means. The issue is they don't know what they need to do to make it better. So coming in and speaking with a teacher can be really important. A lot of times, especially with reasoning, when I sit down and ask a student, well, I could explain that you were missing something here. So tell me more about this, and I'll prompt them to explain to me why they put something in their reasoning, and students will add a wealth of information that fills in the blanks. That they had an argument and they had argument A, which led to B, which led to C, but they thought that B was just kind of something that everybody knew, and I didn't know that that B part of their argument was in there because they just assumed that I would figure it out. So when you talk with someone, often then that's when you recognize the holes in your own argument. I would say to students that oftentimes the best way to become a better writer is to start to talk to your people about writing. And that way you'll see what they're missing or what they're gaining from the way you phrase things. So after you've asked questions about your feedback, the third step is to take inventory. Ask yourself, what did you do well? You want to reward yourself for those things and understand that you want to maintain those parts of your writing. And what would you like to improve? You need to embrace those things and use this opportunity to recognize, hey, I'm going to make it better. Don't label it as, oh, I made a mistake. Remember, this isn't a finished product yet, so you have the opportunity to improve it, and the promise of it being a lot better the second time around can be something that's really motivating for you in this part of this process. So as for the fourth step, you've taken inventory of your strengths and weaknesses, and now you need to really look at that inventory list and decide, do we have any errors with argumentation? And there's two essay elements that I would say deal with argumentation. The first is, quite simply, your evidence. So if you have a problem with your quote or your data, you have to start there. And think about it. The evidence forms the basis for your lead-in and your claim and your reasoning. It's the first thing that you begin with when you start to write your essay. You can't write anything else until you have your evidence. So if you're going to revise and change your quote, what's the point of changing your lead-in first? You know, if you write a better lead-in, it's not going to help if you then find a new quote and realize, oh, I have to write my lead-in all over. So if you have lost any points for your quote or your evidence, you have to start there. Return to the book and say, can I find a better quote that supports my argument? Another area of argumentation that you want to start with first is reasoning. And I think this is a more common mistake, that a lot of people have chosen good evidence, but when it comes to explaining it, they have some weaknesses. So the first thing you want to look at are your word picks. Did you choose the right words? So maybe you have the right quote, but you haven't chosen the right words in order to explain your argument. The other issue is maybe not the words picks, but your connection of the word picks. A lot of times people assume that I can follow your argument. So as I said earlier, you may have an argument A, which leads to B, which leads to C. And you've given me A and C, and you left the middle part out because you assumed that I could follow your argument. So stop and walk someone through, hey, this is why I thought this quote was good. Here's the word pick that I picked, and I think it shows this particular trait because of X, Y, and Z. And make sure as you orally explain that you're getting all of those things in writing as well. So those are the two areas that I would start with when you actually start to think about revision and typing your essay up. So after you've taken inventory and started to fix actual paragraph parts, especially parts dealing with argumentation, hopefully you can start to look at more superficial things. The meat and bones of your essay is usually the argumentation parts. So everything that's left could be something that's more of a minor fix. And the thing that I'm going to ask you to look at next are formal writing errors. So this was not a part of your original essay because it was done in class. So what I really want you to do now is think about those things that make this a formal in-class essay. especially the two that we talk about as being problematic for people all of the time. Since you're doing an essay that's formal this time, it has to be in third person and it has to be in present tense. And in some cases, I may have circled words that I saw were in the past tense, but it's up for you now to make sure that those words are in the present. For something to be in third tense, we need to speak in terms of he and she, and you got to eliminate the you, the I, the me, the my, the we, all those words that are first or second person. So after you've addressed some of the argumentation errors and looked at your other paragraph parts that could be improved based on the comments that you see on the rubric, then you can start to look at stylistic elements of your essay. So because this essay was done in class with time limitations, these were not things that I necessarily pointed out, but are things that as you become a better writer, you're going to recognize that teachers despise, and you want to make sure you avoid these things so that you can earn as many points as possible on your essay. So universally, those things are things such as weak word choice, word sentences, filler phrases, and redundancies. And I've given examples of what each of those errors are. This is just a small list of weak word choices. Some of you may be confused about very. Why do teachers not like very? Well, because a lot of times it's a crutch word. If I'm trying to say someone is very large, I'm using two words to say what could be said in one word. Why can't I just say someone is enormous? The word sentences one is something that usually people do in their reasonings. Instead of word picks, they're using huge chunks of evidence. I don't want the entire sentence. I think on the rubric it says 4 words or fewer. The other thing that you consider doing too is trying to blend those words in. So using hard brackets to change verb tense or person in order to make it blend in with your writing. Filler phrases. So filler phrases would be phrases like before the quote in a lead-in, or this quote shows, or this shows in a reasoning. I need specifics. I know it's a quote. You don't have to be obvious and tell me that again. So if you're trying to say this shows, you need to be clear about what is this? This argument, this emotion, this belief. I need some clarity there. And redundancies. Look carefully at your claim and also at your thesis. A lot of times people are adding ands in, and in having that addition, they were just repeating what they already said. They were saying that Ferdinand is brave and courageous. They're the same word. Simplify. You don't need to repeat it. So the final step number 8, is to address grammar and mechanics. Now I have this last for a reason. And that's because speller and grammar now is often part of word processing programs where it does it for you automatically, but also it's the practicality of some of you may be changing some pretty significant parts of your essay. You may be adding whole sentences of lead-ins. You may be deleting sentences of your reasoning. So making grammar and mechanical errors for things that you're adding and changing just seems like you're doing double the work. Imagine how disappointed you would be if you went through and removed all your contractions in your reasoning and it was 5 sentences worth of contractions, and then all of a sudden you decide to rewrite your reasoning. So you're now deleting all the extra work that you had previously done. So save these little quick fix things for last. Especially by this point in time, you could be a little tired, and these things typically are a little easier to concentrate on than some of the larger mechanical or argumentation errors that you looked at earlier. So now at this point, hopefully you have a plan of attack of what to do when you revise. And what we're going to do now is have some practice revision in class before you get to your own revision assignments.